Hi, IWF. We're here with Marilyn Holifield today, and I'm excited to hear about her journey. Marilyn, thanks for being here. Tell us about your, let's start with your family background and your educational journey.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be participating in this. I was born and grew up in Tallahassee, Florida. My father was from Mississippi, Scott County, Mississippi, and my mother was from Boston, Massachusetts. My father was a farm boy who worked his way through Tuskegee Institute High School as well as college. My mother was the daughter of immigrants from Barbados and Suriname. And when she completed her nursing education at Boston City, she applied for a federal job. And the federal job that she obtained was at the Veterans Hospital in Tuskegee, Alabama, where she met my father.
Great. And so tell us about growing up in Tallahassee and your high school experience and then on to college.
Tallahassee, as you know, is the capital of Florida. And when I was growing up during Jim Crow, which meant racial segregation by law, Tallahassee prided itself in being the only capital of a Confederate state that was not captured by the Union Army. And when the civil rights laws were passed and litigation was done in Tallahassee, one day my mother came home just so excited because she saw this Black female lawyer argue a school desegregation case in court. That lawyer was um, who became Judge Constance Baker Motley. And she came home so excited that this Black woman took charge of the courtroom. She had immense presence and she argued successfully the school desegregation case. A lot of things were happening at that time. And as a teenager, I was caught up in the rightness, the justness of tearing down racial desegregation by law, that it was inhumane, it was unnecessary, and it was something that had to go. And as a teenager, we were in part influenced by the demonstrations of students at Florida A&M University, but also my sense of what was right and what was wrong. So I decided, together with two other African American students, to enter Leon High School. Leon High School was the premier public high school in Tallahassee at the time and had opened its doors 100 years before we entered their doors. And for 100 years before I entered Leon High School, it had been segregated by law. And as you might imagine, or maybe you can't, it was a brand new thing for everyone. And of course, they had the FBI agents there to protect us on the first day. But after the first day, um, things were very, very rough in terms, not so much physical abuse, but just the unrelenting verbal abuse that started on day one and never ended, even on graduation night.
And so how many years did you go to that high school? All 4 years or?
Uh, 2 years, 11th and 12th grades.
Okay. And you went on to college, but was there something about that experience that sort of informed the rest of your life?
That I wouldn't wish the kind of verbal abuse that I suffered at Leon on anyone. It was cruel, it was hateful, it was, in some sense, unimaginable. You just can't imagine other teenagers being so full of hate that they found so much joy and fun in being cruel.
Yeah,
So
I wish we could imagine.
I would not wish that experience on anyone else.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing it because I'm sure that that in part changed our world. I wish we couldn't imagine it anymore, but I'm afraid I'm afraid of our current direction. Let's talk about after high school. Tell us about your college and law school.
When I was graduating from high school, I did not really know where I wanted to go to college, except I wanted to get out of the Deep South. If there was one wish I had was that I never wanted to be subjected to the Southern style racial bigotry. And one of my older brothers was in college at Franklin and Marshall College in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which was about 50 miles from Swarthmore. And he had a friend in the town of Swarthmore who I think may have dared him and said, well, if your sister is all what you say she is, why don't you see if she can get into Swarthmore? Of course, my brother said, Marilyn, have you considered Swarthmore? Look at it. It was founded by Quakers. You know, they're very liberal. You'll have a great time. It's co-ed and it's 50 miles from me. And you'll just have a wonderful, refreshing college experience. And you'll be among people who pursue academic excellence. And so I applied and I got in. I guess he won the wager with his friend who was from the town of Swarthmore. And I did have, in some sense, a transformative experience there on many levels, because Swarthmore, in its history, was not as embracing as I had imagined it to be. It was founded in 1864, and it took until 1943 before it admitted its first Black students. And from 1943 until 1965, it intentionally limited the number of students in a class to one or two. So by 1965, less than 30 Black students had ever matriculated at Swarthmore College. I arrived on campus, well, I guess until 1964. 1964 was the first year that Swarthmore admitted more than one or two students. I believe they admitted maybe 10 or 12. And in my year, Swarthmore admitted 20 Black students and did so at incentives given by the Rockefeller and Ford Foundations. Many of us were National Achievement Fellows, final scholars, or National Merit Scholars, or um, National Science Foundation Scholars. And we were given scholarships, but Swarthmore was also given a subsidy for our education there. We did not know that at the time, that it took that monetary incentive for Swarthmore to be interested in desegregating its student body.
And so what did you studied there, Black Studies?
I studied economics, which was my major, and by my senior year, we had founded something called the Swarthmore Student Afro-American Society. The acronym was SAS, and we like being sassy. And I was part of a group of women that were called the Seven Sisters, because we were a force on campus. And ultimately, we, in our senior year, when Swarthmore seemed like it was going backwards, we protested to nudge the college to not go backwards in admission of Black students, not go backwards in hiring Black faculty, and also not go backwards in establishing a Black Studies program. Because Swarthmore did not have a Black Studies program, we as students obtained permission, together with a faculty advisor, to create our own Black Studies course and program. And so that was called, we took a bundle of courses that allowed us to get a concentration in Black Studies. Fast forward to 2025. In 1969, we protested for a Black Studies department or program. Ultimately, a program was established, but In 2025, some 50 plus years later, Swarthmore has recently authorized the establishment of a Black Studies Department, the establishment of a Black Studies major, and we, as seven sisters and a brother who wrote a memoir about this experience, had also started an endowment. Our endowment our endowments fund started as a fund when we published the book and designated our share of the proceeds of the book to a fund at Swarthmore to support Black studies. And we later decided that we wanted this fund to last in perpetuity, to be a perpetual nudge to Swarthmore to establish a Black Studies department. So fast forward, we have reached the threshold of $100,000. So on May 2nd, the college will celebrate the establishment of the Black Studies Department, the Black Studies major, and the establishment of the Seven Sisters and a Brother Black Studies Endowment Fund.
Oh, incredible. So after college, you went on to law school. Tell us about that.
I was not one of those persons who knew from day one that I wanted to be a lawyer. In fact, the joke in our family is that the older of my two brothers knew he wanted to be a lawyer when he was 3. And by the time he was 12, he knew he wanted to go to Harvard Law School. My brother graduated at the top of his class from Florida A&M University and entered Harvard Law School and graduated the same year that I was graduating from Swarthmore. And I always thought it was a plot between my mother and my brother to try to give me focus to what to do. And he encouraged me to apply to Harvard Law School, and he was my advocate. And um, I did get into Harvard Law School, I think much to his advocacy. And I stayed and I graduated, and I guess the rest is history.
Well, let's talk about the rest. So your first job after law school was with NAACP. Tell us about that.
My job was with the NAACP Legal and Educational Defense Fund. At that time, it was headed by Jack Greenberg. And other notable people there were Joe Nabred and Elaine Jones and Lynn Walker and William Robinson. I was very excited about going to what's commonly called the Inc. Fund or the Legal Defense Fund, because I was at the point in my life where the civil rights laws were still new and fresh and unlitigated. And so we were litigating the civil rights laws around the country. And in my humble opinion, we thought we were changing the world. And I do believe that we did make some changes in the order of things in the racial hierarchy of our country. And the Legal Defense Fund stands today as an important organization that supports civil rights and endorses the humanity of all people.
Yeah. And so how long were you at the NAACP?
I was at the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund for about 5 years. And then I went on to work for Peter Edelman as his general counsel for the New York State Division for Youth, and ultimately made my way back to Florida um, as because I wanted to get back to Florida. And I took a federal clerkship with the late Paul H. Roney, who was a Nixon appointed judge who believed genuinely in understanding diversity of thought. So he made a point of he was very intentional about having a very conservative law clerk, then someone like me, and then someone in the middle. He had 3 law clerks. And he was quite a person who felt that he became a better person by having diversity of thought and opinion and background around him.
Yeah, I'm sure it worked. If only we all felt that way. Eventually, you came to Holland and Knight in 1981. Was that directly
Right.
from clerking?
Yes, there was a little hiatus, but eventually Chesterfield Smith, I referred to as Holland and Knight's super lawyer, super partner, and my
Mhm.
super friend, who turned out to be my super friend and champion, invited me to join the firm
Where
in
you,
in
oh,
1981. And I joined the firm in the Tampa office. The Miami office was just starting in 1980, but ultimately, Chesterfield invited me to work in the Miami office, and it was a brand new adventure. And the early days at Holland Knight were really, really rough and very difficult, very hard, um, and uh, challenging. And that's another experience that I would not wish on another person. When I entered Holland Knight in 1981, now mind you, Holland Knight had its origins in the 1890s in Central Florida. And Tampa was very, very old South. And it was a new experience to have a Black female lawyer um, in a old line white law firm. And it was very, very challenging for me.
and you're still there.
But I'm still standing, I'm still there.
And so the firm evolved and
The
yeah,
firm evolved, I evolved. The firm is nowhere where it was back in 1981. And in fact, now I think the firm can pat itself on the back as being a leader in respecting the value of inclusion and respecting the competitive advantages that inclusion generates and continuing to acknowledge that even though there is a climate that tries to dissuade people from that given, the more you have diversity of thought and background around the table, problem solving, seeking new ways of understanding, um, approaching problems, and providing the best service possible to clients, the more diversity has that um, impact on a situation that makes everybody, in my opinion, better.
tell us what you're doing now, what your practice entails.
Right now, I am primarily a relationship partner for a mega client of the firm that I brought to the firm. And it's one of those things where I feel in the twilight of my career, I was blessed with an opportunity to create opportunities for other lawyers, other diverse lawyers, other non-diverse lawyers, but lawyers that make up the full range of lawyers in our firm. This client, we have lawyers working across more than 10 practice groups, more than 8 or 9 offices, and who handle everything from intellectual property to contract review to um, immigration to uh, HR. And for me, it's quite a joy to know that in some small way that I am contributing to the success of lawyers at Holland Knight.
So tell us, you've had a lot of different things going on in your career. Is there a significant professional achievement that you're particularly proud of?
I think I would point to 3. One is my board service on the Model Cities Family Health Center in Liberty City. When I first came to Miami, I was invited to serve on that board. And at that time, it was what they call federally qualified community health center, serving about 50,000 patients, clients in Liberty City. The most rewarding thing about that experience was the leadership of Jesse Trice, who imbued in the spirit of the Family Health Center respect and dignity for all persons. The other thing I learned is that you can get a lot done in 1 hour if you stay focused. So I think I was known for, when I was board chair, holding meetings, and to our amazement, we would cover the agenda, wrap things up, come to a conclusion in an hour or just over an hour. And that experience taught me so much about leadership, so much about respect, dignity, and so much about the humanity of everyone. Another project was a collaboration with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, where we used laws to go to court in an ex parte proceeding before Judge Lenore Nesbitt and get an ex parte order, an order without notice to the other side, to confiscate documents that consisted of books and books and books of racial coding that was used to exclude Black applicants from the Hamlet Estates rental unit. And at that time, it was late 80s. I was new to Miami, and Miami was not where it is now. Miami is still polarized. Miami is still there's still racially tinged issues in our lives. But back then, that racial coding was intentional, purposeful exclusion of applicants simply because they were Black or had dark skins. And it was quite amazing when the federal marshal, we went up with the Lawyers Committee lawyers and myself and the federal marshal, and he plunked his badge on the table and said, "I am here by order of the United States Court of the Southern District of Florida, and I have an order to confiscate records." And the people said, "Oh, no, we don't have any records that you're talking about. Take a look. We'll show you." And we couldn't find anything. And just as we were about to leave, the young lawyer from the Lawyers Committee said, "Well, let's look in this closet." And on the top shelf of this closet were boxes of documents. And when we looked in the documents, there were the racial coding that had been testified to at the ex parte hearing. And ultimately, that case settled for about $4 million to the class and six-figure lawyers' fees for our firm and Lawyers Committee. I think our fees probably were donated. I'm not sure where our fees were, but it was just such a wonderful thing that we were able to prove the existence of this racial coding and achieve some sort of justice in that instance. The third thing is more current, and that's I guess it's the Museum of Contemporary Art of the African Diaspora, that together with a young man, he's not so young now, but 25 years ago, he was a law clerk for Holland Knight. He was a student at University of Miami Law School. He's Haitian American, went to Miami Edison Senior High School and then to Colgate University, and came back home to University of Miami Law School. So about 25 years ago, he was working with me as a law clerk. And once he became a successful lawyer, and he knew of my interest in art, and he said it's about time Miami had a welcoming space, museum space dedicated 24/7 to art of the African diaspora and contemporary Africa. So we knew we didn't have any money. So from the very beginning, we knew that, or we surmised that we would focus on technology and leveraging technology to make up for the fact that we did not have money. And we would use technology potentially as a revenue generating source, but also to create new art experiences. We did not want to be like the next museum down the street. We wanted to be new. We wanted to be nimble. We wanted to be 21st century, not only in being accessible, but also in creating experiences that were in line with the visual and the tech experience that our young people, our not so young people, are becoming accustomed to.
Yeah, amazing. I heard a little bit about that, about the dine around, and I know that you now have a bunch of followers that are gonna
Oh,
make sure
wow.
that we have a behind the scenes or some event related to your work there. So thank you for all your service. Tell us,
Thank you. And if you really want to follow us, you can follow us. Sign up for our newsletter at Miami MoCAD. Miami MOCAAD.org. Follow us on Instagram, sign up on our YouTube channel. For instance, on our YouTube channel, we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We're just at 179 now.
okay. Well,
Follow us on
you have a lot of
Facebook, LinkedIn, everything.
fans here.
Why,
So
thank you.
what are you learning about now?
What am I learning about? I'm reading a very, very interesting book by a colleague from the Harvard Board of Overseers. It's Hope and Healing by John S. Wilson. And John's book looks to the value of the historically Black college and university experience as emblematic of, if you want a better world, do things to create better people. And he looks at the trajectory of people who were educated in these institutions, who worked to create a better world. And it's really instructive in terms of the historical perspective that he brings to the challenges facing historically Black colleges and universities. But he also opens up the door to asking society to look at these institutions with an eye towards their contributions to making a better world. My father went to Tuskegee Institute, now Tuskegee University, and my mother also graduated from Florida A&M University, both historically Black uh, institutions. And I can say that part of my spirit, much of my spirit, all of my spirit, I can attribute to the civic mindedness and the civic contributions that my parents made in our community of Tallahassee, uh, particularly back in the days when there was a Tallahassee bus boycott for justice, and other civil rights struggles in Tallahassee. I think I get the commitment to service from my parents, and I think I get my uh, striving for excellence also from my parents.
Yeah. What's the best advice you've ever received?
I think it comes in three categories. One, that challenges always come, and challenges create not straight lines in how you get to the finish line, but often it's a zigzag, I call it. Another dimension is that it's really important to try to take the high road, especially I think for lawyers. I can't say that I have not fallen victim to being totally annoyed by opposing counsel. And maybe someone could say, she didn't make it there. But the idea is to strive to take the high road, no matter how difficult the situation is. And the adage of, I would say, the great visionary Chesterfield Smith is to do good.
Yeah. Just a few fun questions. What's a fact about you that we would not find on the internet?
The maybe thousands of times that I fell off a surfboard trying to learn how to windsurf, not only in Hawaii, but in Biscayne Bay and in the Virgin Islands.
What is the book you have most gifted?
That's a hard one because it changes. Recently, I've gifted the Trayvon Generation by Elizabeth Alexander, but I've also gifted Hope and Healing by John Wilson, and I've also gifted Vision and Justice by Sarah E. Lewis.
The most exciting adventure you've had outside your career?
It's probably, I'm translating exciting to exhilarating, scary, exciting, but flying in a motorless airplane in upstate New York, they call it gliding. And the plane stays up because you navigate the hot spaces. And it's really scary, really exhilarating, and really a wonderful relief to make a smooth landing.
Nice. That's something I would like to do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Last question. If you were in charge of the playlist, what song would be playing next?
Right now, I'm thinking Andrea Day, Rise Up. I really love that song. I can listen to it forever. And I also could listen to Nina Simone forever, any one of her songs. But Rise Up by Andrea Day is a song that I really like.
Thank you. And thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. It was great hearing a little bit about your journey.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been fun, and I really appreciate having this time to participate in this program.
Thanks.
Bye.